I'm Melissa Chappell.
I'm Sophie Williams.
Welcome back to our podcast, Autism by Autistics.
We've got that down.
We're going to be talking all about socialisation. So broadly, we're going to first all talk about social nuances, I think would be the best way to summarise the first section. And then...
Let's go with that, yeah.
The differences between socialising with neurotypicals and then other autistic people. So I've written down some prompts for us.
Right, I'm just going to describe to listeners, you have a post-it note.
Yeah, I've moved it from my phone.
I have a notebook dedicated to the podcast.
Of course, you know I've got a Pink Floyd notebook, but that's too much to keep in front of me.
And you've used blue pen on a blue post-it note.
That's my favourite colour.
Yeah, but
I can see it. So, the first prompt that I wanted us to talk about, so I want to know how you feel about this off-the-cuff social chit-chat.
As we're keeping this a clean podcast, I'm going to have to take a while to sort of like use different ones. I don't like it, basically. It's just, I don't see the point in it.
I'm just going to go on a bit of a tangent here. When I'm editing the podcast, I always think, oh my god, I wish there was always put Sophie's face in at that moment, because I just remember this like really expressionate, like, I am so unhappy right now face.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, social chit-chat's not fun.
I don't see the point in it. Like, I can go from 0 to 100 in like some deep philosophical conversation. Yeah. I think it's more that I'm aware that social chit-chat, I genuinely don't really care about people's answers, and I think most people don't care about people's answers. So if someone just met, like, how are you? What do you do? It's like, no one really cares.
That's quite a good point, because I wanted to start talking about how are you? As a question. You've just frozen in time.
Well, I mean, the thing is, how I'd answer that question to you not on recording is very different as well. I think contact definitely.
Oh, I'm not asking you, I'm saying, like, how do you feel about that? What? I won't put you on the spot and ask you on the...
I'm confused! That's how I feel!
No, I'm not putting you on the spot and, like, want you to tell the audience, like, how do you feel about how are you? Yeah,
that question. Well, the problem is, again, most people don't care about the answer to that. I only ask people when I genuinely care about the answer.
Like,
it's why I don't ask my brother that often, how are you?
I was thinking back through my life about my understanding of how are you. This is how much this question ruins me. I remember when I was younger, my mum had to really focus in on it, because people would say, how are you? And I'd just go, fine, and then walk away, because I knew they didn't really want to know. So it's like, why should I engage in a back and forth conversation that is not real?
There's no point.
So she drilled it into me of like, if someone's being polite, just be polite back. You don't have to get into it. But then I had all the navigation of, do they really want to know? Or do you just want to know the social appropriate version? That took me ages to learn, because there were so many times that it'd be like, how's your day? How are you? And I'd just give the honest answer. And you get that like scared look of, I only wanted you to say I'm okay.
I think you know, I think it's one of the first stories I shared, and I know you love this one if you can remember it, is, you know which one's coming a bit.
No, I don't.
When I was really depressed and like, because I sort of couldn't be left
alone. I know the one.
You know this one. And I was having a really difficult day. And this was before we knew I was autistic, and my mum we had to go to the shops. And of course, the checkout person asked, how are you? And I just honestly turned around and went suicidal. And I feel bad now looking back, and my mum just kind of sighed and went, come on. But I just sort of like...
It was the truth.
It was the truth, because at that moment, you know what? Yeah, I felt suicidal. So it's kind of a dangerous question as well.
I don't mind being asked it, but at the same time, I'm like, don't ask it if you don't really want to know the answer, because some days if I'm not coping, you get the real answer.
Yeah, that girl really didn't want to know the answer, let's be honest.
But I started thinking, so basically, just to cut a long story short, Colin is my stepdad, theoretically. You know this, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's the only person in my life who I see as my dad.
Yeah.
So he did come into the family later. And, oh my gosh, he baffled me so much because I got my head around, how are you?
Yeah.
Matt Colin, all right. And I was just like, is this a hi? Is this a how are you? Like,
so
is he
you're
asking me,
Scouse
am
as
I
well?
alright?
How do you not know that all right is...
I didn't know. I just panicked. So
the thing is, all right can mean, to the non-Scouse of the listeners, or just it might be a Merseyside thing, all right means hello, how are you, passing green.
I couldn't cope because I went through an experiment of about a month of going, hi, and then another month of going, I'm okay, how are you? And just like
Both
panicking.
are appropriate responses to all right.
But I got to the point where I sat my parents down. Can't remember if they were both there or one of them, and I was like, what does all right mean? And they were like, why have you thought about this so much? And I was like, it's ruining me. I do not know how to answer this question. I need answers. Yeah. And then Alex came into the family and I just observed the whole call and go, all right. And Alex go, all right. And I was like, was it that easy the whole time?
Yeah, that is the response to all right is all right and nod your head. I had that mastered quite quick in life.
But I think as well, like, I panicked so much because you're always told, like, oh, you're getting that wrong, your socialization method wrong. So then constantly overanalyzing everything I say. Oh, yeah. Panicking, definitely. Like, oh no, I've done something wrong.
I do that. I think it does come down to the fact we are told. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter when you're diagnosed. It's like, especially when people call it a social disability, and it's like, you just stop and question every single thing.
I see it as a social disability with the definition of society's causing the disability by not being friendly.
Exactly.
But not that we're the problem, because
we're not the problem.
Again, double empathy problem.
Double empathy. Well, that's the thing, like, it's quite a natural point to talk about it, is like research that's going on in Edinburgh University, and they've done looking at interactions between autistic people and neurotypicals, doing like social diffusion trains. It's Catherine Crompton who's primarily done it, but there's a few on the team. I'll put like links to things in the descriptions. I think this week start doing that.
Put it on the Twitter page.
Just put it on the Twitter. We'll be on Twitter. I'll tweet us stuff. And when you sort of have autistic people with autistic people, it's fine that they've done diffusion chains, so that's like sort of passing a story along.
Yeah.
And it works better.
Oh, I saw this on their podcast.
Yeah, it works when you have the same neurotype.
Yeah.
It's effective.
Because we know how to communicate with each other, basically.
Exactly. But then when you sort of intermix, that's when the problem happens. And I think
you need to watch the podcast, and I have put this on our Twitter, I think. It's Brett Heisman, I think that's the right way to say his name, I really hope so. And Catherine, is it Catherine?
Yeah, Catherine Crompton.
Catherine's there. And it's interesting the dynamic of all their research together, because then Brett, where the neurotypicals perceive themselves as being helpful when actually they're just passing on the blame. It worked really well alongside her and Catherine's, so I quite like that dynamic.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's what's great, is we are seeing more research as well as like reports from autistic people, and even this podcast that says there are these socialization differences, but there's wrongs on both sides. Because
my other thing was, like, my other issue with social chit chat is keeping a conversation going. Oh, it's a nightmare. I'm like, oh, the conversation's gone quiet and I don't know what to say because I don't know social chit-chat, so I'm just like, please just keep talking. I
have what I refer to as a panic question when that happens.
See, I'm not that prepared. What's your panic question?
I have. It's such a stupid question.
Oh, it's probably not.
It really is. You're not ready for this. It's, what colour would you want the sky to be if it wasn't blue?
Ooh. I pick blue, but then that's not what your question is, so I just sit there like, can't make a decision.
But no one ever, like, I've had some answers, but it makes everyone stop because everyone's just confused, because even if it's no context at all, if there's like a bit of a lull. I was
going to say, do you do this like taxis and stuff as well, or is it just people you know?
No, it's just like when I'm in, especially when there's sort of like a few people in the social chit chat and there's like, it dies down and I feel like, oh god, the conversation's got to keep going. And I'll just panic and go, what colour would you want the sky if it wasn't blue?
I'm actually thinking now when you say that, when I'm with you and Poppy, that's a group, and I struggle with groups, but I don't struggle to keep that conversation going because it's okay to bring up random little questions in a friendly group setting.
We've talked about Poppy before. Poppy is a wonderful ally. She's neurotypical, but she's great.
She is great. But yeah, like,
that's my panic.
It depends, I think, as well, because that's relevant because Poppy is so understanding. I would feel completely comfortable to be like random question time.
Yeah.
But I think when I'm around neurotypicals, because even now, like, I don't struggle. We don't prep for a podcast other than little points that we want to discuss. There's no script.
We really don't prep.
We don't have time to script. So we managed to keep a conversation going for a whole hour every week. It could probably go on longer if we needed to. But if I was with a neurotypical, I'd hit a point and I'd just be like, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to say next. I find that really hard.
I think it definitely comes down to being comfortable because, the majority of my friends are neurotypical, but there's ones where I think especially when there's a group and there's sort of like a common thing to talk about, this is where it's sort of the no chit chat thing. Like I'll go into like a really deep discussion.
Yeah, I was going to say,
sort of just
I
general...
don't really do chit chat. It's always like deep questions or deep topics that I want to hear their opinion.
Like, what colour would you want in the sky? I think I read it somewhere on like, those questions you should, funny questions to ask people, and it's just kind of stuck with me. And there's probably a million better panic questions to have, but it's always that one.
Allies are fine because as well, like...
Yeah.
With a neurotypical that isn't an ally, the problem is, are they judging me? Or I can see they're judging me. If someone's an ally and you know they're an ally, you can relax a bit. And also researchers, because research is so interesting, you could just talk and talk and talk about it.
Yeah, so and they also kind of, their natural curiosities means they probably want you to be different.
Exactly, and there's always a new point that ties into the last point, so that's always quite nice.
Exactly, like I did 2 interviews yesterday. I did one as a researcher and then one as a participant. And that's the thing, it was so nice just being a participant because it felt so natural, and because it was like autism related as the study as well, there was no pressure. I think that's the thing, it's that lack of expectation, and I think that is the difference of socialising with neurotypicals and autistic people. With autistic people, you kind of have that there's no expectation because it's kind of like, well, this is how we work. And when neurotypicals, it's like you're so conscious that you are different to them.
Yeah, and trying to just behave in a way that's not going to
but then that's
questions or judgment.
That's when in the allies it's got that same no expectations.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, they're really easy to talk to compared to...
Like, I know if I do something that maybe they don't quite get, like, I know Poppy will just sort of go, okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Like, acknowledgement questions is when there's, like, stares, though. It's like, oh no.
It's like online, like, on the Discord's great because it's just, I don't have people's facial expressions, and they'll call me out if I do something real weird, and they're like, what do you mean?
Have you got any other difficulties with social chit-chat then?
I think because social chit-chat tends to happen at the start of an interaction, so when you first met someone in sort of a kind of, you may never see that person again, so it's like there's no point getting, you know, that kind of sort of past the time type thing, and it just, that's uncomfortable because it's kind of like, I don't know how to handle that, but then it's also sort of like, but if I get into something super detailed, I don't, like, I probably am not going to disclose unless it's super relevant.
See, I really struggle with taxi drivers and also with shop assistants. But at the same time, I don't worry as much because once it's over, I don't care if I've made a mistake. I'm never going to see them again. I worry more during it because it's like, oh, this is awkward. But then afterwards, there's no consequence. So it's just like, okay.
Yeah, I think when I was social anxious, when I was younger, around the time of diagnosis, I did worry about that. Like, afterwards, I did, like, replay a lot. But I think as I've got older, I'm more comfortable that knowing there's no consequence and people don't overthink things the way I was.
Yeah.
I think the only reason I'm more with shop assistants and taxi drivers is because, like, my mum doesn't drive. Taxi's been something that's been quite free. Yeah, I'm used to them more. And, like, being in shops because my mum sort of dragged me everywhere for a few years. And so I've sort of kind of mimic maybe the thing she'll do, especially because my mum worked in retail. So it's kind of like, oh, is it being busy, you know?
It probably doesn't help that I only ever really get in a taxi when I'm not coping and it's an emergency, like I need to get somewhere, I can't function. And then it's just like, most of the time they won't speak to me because it's obvious. Like this morning I had to jump in a taxi because I wasn't coping, had an appointment, and like thankfully Alex was there, so he just kept any conversation stuff that needed doing while I just sort of sat there trying not to break. But it's also a bit different because then if they do talk, because I'm already an overload, because I'm in a taxi for whatever reason, it feels more like pressure.
It depends on the taxi driver as well. Like certain ones are more chatty. We sort of know, it's like my mum and grandma got mobility issues, so they very much, we use the local taxi services like a fair bit for like doctor's appointments and things. But they're more structured things that I know what to do. But when it's prepared. Like deep end, it's like I don't help.
But the other point I wanted to talk about was, it kind of ties in a little bit, is instigating a conversation and ending a conversation. It's a bit easier with something like a taxi because it's got a clear end point when you get out of that taxi. But ending points in general are really hard for me because then I'm like, do I keep talking? Do I need to say something specific? I feel a lot of the time like there's a specific thing I need to say, or sometimes you're just like kind of staring at each other.
Yeah.
Conversation over.
Panic question. Panic question works.
But then I don't know when like, is the panic question the end, or do you ask more questions?
Well, sometimes it's developed a conversation, and then other times it's kind of you realise I've probably made someone uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Some people like the panic questions, some people don't. Mostly just people find it quite funny because it's so random, and then it kind of naturally then brings up sort of something maybe more lighthearted. But again, it's so context dependent, and that's where it's nice when it's something that's predictable. I don't show up. That's another issue.
Yeah, that's a problem, I think, is like once I'm talking, I can't keep talking, so then I'm like, I don't know when the clear point is to stop talking.
Exactly.
And that's a social problem.
Yeah. It's not that I don't, as much as noise is a sensory issue for me, I don't like it just stone cold silent.
No, but then I will avoid instigating a conversation with someone I don't know at all costs.
Yeah.
I do not try and,
yeah, it's like
interact with people for the sake of it, unless I know them and I like them and I want to.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it for the sake of it. I'd find something else to fill the silence. Yeah. But if it was something with chit chat and it went quiet, I would try and fill the silence just because.
If it's already started, then because then it's
especially if it's hard to like disconnect. It's alright if it's a busy event where you can sort of network and flip from group.
If I don't want to talk, just getting my phone out or a book can be helpful. But then you also get some people where I'm like, you people are evil. They see you're reading and then they decide they're going to instigate a conversation. And I'm just like, why?
My mum does that and I'm like, I'm reading.
Oh, if they're talking about you, like if someone that's different. Or if they're talking about
No, if I'm reading, I'm reading. Go,
no, I'm on about like on a bus, absolute strangers that I'm never going to see you again. So it's like, what was the point of this?
Oh, this actually happened to Poppy. She was on a train, she was studying, and this woman kept trying to tell her about something. It's like where she was going, and Poppy was like, I'm trying to study here.
The thing that bothers me the most is it doesn't happen when I'm not reading. It's only when I read. It's like someone just decides I'm going to distract you.
I must admit, trains, I dread someone speaking to me on a train, because trains, I like a nice train ride.
I love trains, but that's my time to switch off and not speak.
Exactly. My brother was doing it. I think I messaged you in anger. We were coming back from Edinburgh this year. He like annoyed me on the station for a start. I was ready to kill him. I'm a great sister. I'm just going to put that out there. And then because I'd like downloaded papers for like my research project, and I'm there trying to read them and like make notes. And I think I was then like casually chatting to you and other people over Messenger, and he started trying to talk to me after he just snapped at me on the platform, and I'm there like staring at him like I'm reading. It's like, you're on your phone messaging. I'm asking a research question. Shut up, leave me alone. He kept trying to talk to me, and in the end I'm glaring at him.
See, what I do, Alex, I'm so sorry if you're listening to this, you probably will, is if I've got to travel, and it's not only with Alex, if I want to be left alone, I take a headphone splitter and some music. And it's like, you can listen too. This is a universal
problem is,
thing.
if I did that, because thinking about it, most of the travelling I've done, like, if I look back at the past year or so, it's been mostly with Sam.
Yeah.
We've kind of got different music tastes where we'd be like, oh, listen to this song.
Oh yeah, you have to make sacrifices and do like a mutual playlist.
I don't do sacrifices with music. There's a few things we both like, so
I try to sneak some Pink Floyd in there. We are listening to some. But there's also difficulties with like formalities of a conversation, so I really struggle with that because for me it's not formal and informal. It's like, I like you or I don't, I care about you or I don't.
I've got that exact same approach, like how I treat someone when I don't like you, or just
I'm fair and I'm civil, but that's when it comes into the formal category where if you've offended me or if you've done something, it's very formal. Different.
It's
as little as it has to be.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that formal. It's just, for me, it's quite indifferent.
Yeah.
Like, that's when I'll definitely, like, just completely say, like, I was trying to make eye contact or, like, fake eye contact. That's when I'll just completely stop and be like, yeah, no, you're not getting my effort anymore.
But I do struggle with it, and, like, Chris Packham explains it really well. I would recommend reading his biography. I think it might be in there as well, but this was in the National Autistic Society magazine. And he talks about, like, depth of emotion and depth of care.
Yeah.
And he's saying, like, people think he's really ignorant or unempathic when he hears that something's happened to someone he doesn't know, and he goes, I don't really care. But then he explains, like, if it's someone he likes even just a little bit, it really hits him hard if it's someone that matters. And that's what I mean, is, like, if I see something on the news, don't get me wrong, especially if it's a situation I can empathise with, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awful. Or also, like, if somebody was to say, oh, such a person had this thing happen, I'm like, I don't know them, so I don't have anything to say to you.
I've got that exact approach, and funny enough, like, the study I did yesterday for someone was on empathy, and it's just kind of like, I am, like, the most empathetic, kind, caring person, but if I don't know someone, it's just kind of like, it's like, even, like, when my grandma will speak about, like, stuff other people are doing that she knows, and it's just like, it's irrelevant to me.
It's not an empathy issue though, it's a processing issue. I've got so much on my mind that there's only so many people I can give that much headspace to, because the depth of care is so deep. And the thing is, like, it's not even just people like family or close friends. If somebody's nice to me, if I like someone as a person, I will care about them even if I don't know them that well.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what I struggle with is, so there's sometimes situations where, like, something's happened and I'm like, no matter who you are, if I like you and I find out something's happened in your life, I will think about it. And then, like, even through my day, I'll be thinking, oh my God, are they okay? Or that must be horrible. Probably more than neurotypicals do. I think they do it at first, they acknowledge it and go, that must be dreadful. But for me, it's constant. I'm constantly thinking about that person.
Yeah, if it's someone I care about, but I think if someone I can disconnect.
Oh yeah, exactly. If it's somebody I don't know, it's different. If it's someone I
like, it's definitely. And then that's when that's what's great about, like instant messaging now. I can sort of check if I am feeling, like, really bothered. I can check and be like, you all right?
But then I do get stressed sometimes as well, like, where there's that issue, and it again comes back to empathy a little bit, where responses are a huge problem. So I used to go with the approach of, if I find out something's happened, even if you're, like, the closest person in the world to me, I'm not going to react. I'm going to deal with it logically and tactically, and then the emotion will come when I'm alone, because to me it's like, that might not help that person, and they're going to be judging my reaction and how good or how inappropriate it is. And then people don't like that. It's like, you're not empathetic. So what I started doing was always saying what I thought, and would be like, look, I'm really sorry you're going through that, or I really care that you're going through that. But then you get some people where they then back off, and it's like, no, that's too much empathy, and you're like, I cannot win.
See, what I do is I ask someone what they need, because I'm so aware it, like, varies on everything. And then I'm also so aware, like, what I need is very different. So, like, I even know, like, our differences in terms of things. Like, I'm quite a huggy person.
Yeah, that's the thing. If someone's there with me, I'll be like, how can I help? But then if it's remote, even, I will always say, like, thinking about you, will really hope this gets better. But then I'm like, is that the right thing to say?
I never say that just because it annoys me a lot.
People have the tendency to say, I'm so sorry to hear about that. And I actually learned that people hate that because you're not responsible, and it's seen as a removal.
I was just about to say that.
To me, that's ridiculous, because saying, I am so sorry to hear you've gone through that, is the most accurate way to explain how I'm feeling. I really, what I'm feeling is, I so wish you hadn't gone through that. So then,
whereas for me,
was like, oh, people hate that. Now I'm like, oh, that's rubbish, or that mustn't, because I'm so scared to say I'm so sorry, because I'm like, that they might take the wrong thing from it.
See, that's where I'm like, so what do you need? Because I see sorry as like you're apologising for something you're responsible for.
Yeah,
that's why I don't say it.
I don't use it in any other circumstances, and I always add a bit extra to say, like, I'm so sorry to hear that you've gone through that, rather than I'm so sorry it's happened.
Yeah, but when people say so sorry it happened, it confuses me.
But then again, me and Alex have this where he does it with everything, even not just grief, where he goes, I'm so sorry, and I go, why, what have you done? Like, you haven't done anything.
I just imagine you glare at it and be like, what have you done?
Oh no, I don't mean like that. I'm just like confused. Like, why are you apologising to me?
I think I used to be an over-apologiser, and I think when I've sort of stopped doing that, it's kind of like, yeah, no.
Honestly, until someone said that I'm so sorry is seen as the indifferent thing to say. I was sorted. I had what I meant, what I wanted to say, and now, like, this has happened with everything, though, not just grief.
Yeah.
Every part of socialisation.
Oh, everything gets overanalyzed.
Starts jumping through hoops, and I'm like, do I say this? Do I say that? What do I say? And then the worst part, though, is that deep, like, sickening feeling of, have I been too informal? Have I been too formal? Have I said the wrong thing? Have I upset them?
Yeah.
That can keep me going all night to the point of meltdown, because it's like, don't want to seem like a bad person, don't want to seem like an intense person, an invasive person, I just want to seem like an empathetic person.
I think this is the thing as well, because I know, and people told me, and I see myself as this really good, kind, caring, empathetic person.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin that, like, I don't want to ruin that perception of me. Exactly. I'm a nice person, damn it.
Like, even if I don't know someone, coming back to it, where it's like, I have nothing to say, I also won't say anything horrible.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not that kind of person.
well, lovely people.
But it's just so hard, because this is what people don't get, is there's so many rules, and you can do this, but you can't do that, and oh my gosh,
and
it's
it
so
changes
hard.
In every situation.
I know, that this is where the formality stuff really bothers me, because there's different rules for every type of relationship, whether it's family, friends, romantic relationships, work colleagues, people you meet in stores. You're supposed to learn for like every single one, it feels. But other people don't, they just know how to generalise it. I'm like,
And I think also it'd be great if there was a handbook, but it damn well isn't.
It's not so bad on email, because then I can run it by my mum. Be like, is this the right thing to say? Or
I do. I've probably mentioned this in like the study yesterday. And it's just kind of like, one of the things I will do, if I have no idea what to say, I'll sort of think, like the same, like running something past, like, that's like via email, it's great, you can run it past everyone. Like, does this sound too sassy? Is this not sassy enough? Is this like, whatever? Or like, is this too formal? Is this right? Is this thing? But then I'll be in a situation, and especially when it's stuff I've got no experience with, I'll sort of think, what would my mum do? Because it's kind of like a trustworthy person who seems to know what they're doing, and my mother is an inherently social and great with people person.
I had to ask my mum recently about, what was it? Hope you're well. And I love it when people say that, because I'm like, oh, that's really sweet, you're wishing me well. And I always try and say it back if I remember to, which is often.
Oh, don't tell me there's a problem with hope you're well. It's like the most neutral thing to say.
No, my problem was, is it a question? Or is it just a statement?
It's a statement, love.
No, but one of my supervisors, Josie, thankfully always makes her intention clear with a question mark. So I'm like, okay, I get that. But then when other people ask, I'm like, do I put fine, thanks? Do I just ignore it? Like, do I acknowledge it? Oh, it's all these rules again. And I'm like, I don't know what to do.
See, when I want to ask someone if I hope they're well, I put it in like a sentence as like a question. Like, I've done that in emails. Like, there's some staff I've been spoken
how
to.
How things going?
Yeah, like over the summer, I'll be like, I hope you had a lovely summer. It's like, how have you been? Question mark. Because I'm genuinely interested, and especially when I've not caught up with someone. So like I say, there's like staff that now that like semester's about to start up again, it's like getting in contact about things, and it is like I genuinely care how someone's summer's been, and if they've, gone away or like enjoyed not teaching for a bit.
But the hard part is like, I don't want to, I could just ask the person what they mean, but then I don't want to, because I don't want them to go through what I go through of tripping over their words and I'm saying the right thing. I don't want people to say, like, I don't want people thinking they can't say hope you're well things. I'm fine with it. I just wish I knew how to respond.
I've come to the conclusion that there's certain things I'll just never know how to respond to.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important to, like, for me to surround myself with people who do understand. So then if I say something or don't react in something that's like deemed socially appropriate, they'll kind of go, she's just been really confused, like she usually is about anything social. It
just all comes back to fear of making a social mistake.
Exactly.
And I remember when we went for dinner with Poppy, Poppy probably didn't even think about this as much as I did. When we were waiting for our bill, and I usually just look anywhere else, thinking like, please, like, let the card machine go through quickly. But Poppy just sat and like casually spoke to the waitress and was like,
and we're all.
Poppy was like, what are you up to later? And I thought, I never would have thought to ask that. But then thinking back to mimicry, I thought, I'm watching Poppy now and it's so natural. It's like the most natural question I ever thought if I was to ask someone that. It would seem so intense because I'd be so scared there'd be no expression. So I thought, this is why I don't mimic people.
Yeah.
But then as well, like, thinking back to intensity, I can't even just generalistically say don't assume autistic people are being intense, because I've met autistic people, you know all the stories. The problem is that, and it ties into what you're going to speak about soon as well, with the difference between autistics and neurotypicals, is that for a while, because autistic people generally are very loyal and nice people and very honest and truthful people, I always made the assumption that it was a safe zone and that every autistic person was nice. And the people around me had to prepare me, like, not everyone's nice, and that applies to any neurotype, and you have to protect yourself. And there's been just too many situations, obviously not as many as neurotypicals, because there's just more neurotypicals than autistic people, but where I've been lulled into that false sense of security of this is my tribe kind of feeling, and then something's happened, like there's been aggression or something really inappropriate, and I've felt that same, like, fear as I would if it was a neurotypical. And it's harder because it's somebody that is just like you, so you think it's going to be okay, but it usually does tie into intensity. But for me, it comes back to that thing what I said to you about prejudice, where when it's an autistic person especially, I know that sometimes they might not be aware, so I will just always say, right, whatever it is you've done, you've made me feel uncomfortable, and this is why you've made me feel uncomfortable. And if they respond to that by, oh, I'm so sorry, or that's not how I meant it, then I completely forget about it and I just carry on talking. If I do that, and it has only happened a couple times, and then that person carries on being nasty or intense, I mean, there's been times where it's happened and the person's just gone, like, oh, I don't want to talk. It's like they're quite ignorant to it. There has only been a couple of times where it's turned into more nastiness, more aggression. That's when I then draw the line and say, no, I don't want this social connection anymore. But there are some autistic people, which is just like me, where you say, right, something you've said, I've misunderstood it, or it's made me feel this way, and they just go, okay, sorry, or how can I make that different? And for me, if I was making a mistake in any sense, whether it was offending someone, upsetting someone, or even just confusing someone, I'd want them to ask or say, and I could just be casual with that, as long as they weren't, like, angry at me. That's the thing, I'm never angry at anyone. I just always say, you know, that's made me a bit uncomfortable, but if you've meant it a different way, then I'm not uncomfortable with you. Like, don't think the emotion is at you, it's at what you've said specifically.
I think it's that thing, because I know myself, especially when I'm stressed, like an overload, it's dead easy to things to come across the way I didn't intend to, or I don't realise that maybe, like, my tone's gone louder or something like that, especially when I'm really stressed.
Oh, tones are horrible.
And I always, like, friendships, everyone sort of, on regularly, I sort of give them the sort of, like, I may say something that I don't mean. I don't take any offence for you saying, did you mean it that way? Because I know it can be, and it's just kind of giving people... Because I know it can be that, and I sort of give, like you do, I give other people the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly,
that maybe it didn't mean it, but then some people get really defensive. And I've had people, questionable, autistic or not, and they've then got really defensive and nasty about it, and then it's like, that's just not an appropriate response. It doesn't matter who you are, there's no justification for that. And, like, I have seen people sort of use the fact they're autistic or, like, someone's autistic to use that as, like, a defense, and, like, nothing justifies being nasty. You can still
have problem behaviours just because you're autistic.
It doesn't make it. And I've seen some people use it as very much a sort of a justification, and it's like, that's not right.
See, abruptness, I'm always okay with if it's just honest.
Abruptness is different. Yeah, that's like...
If someone's just being honest, I try not to get offended, and if I do, then that's my fault, not theirs. That's the way I see it. As long as they're only being honest and they're not doing it with intent to cause harm.
There's a difference between someone just making a statement, and it's like, it's not like your problem, it's just your reaction. You can't control your reaction to things. You can't dictate people's feelings. That's the truth of it. But
one situation that I had, the situation I experienced, it was somebody was being quite cruel basically, and it wasn't abruptness. It was very subjective statements that didn't need to be said at all.
Yeah.
And I made them aware of that, and they just flippantly said, I like to argue. That's just who I am, and got worse, and carried on and on and on. And I just thought, that doesn't make it okay. Like, you might like to argue, go into debates, go into places where people want that dynamic. You can't just force it on other people.
It's okay that you like to argue, but on the whole, most people don't. And there's a time and a place to start a debate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the thing. Like, even with on Discord, there'll be times where we sort of have a debate about something. I mean, sometimes it's really weird stuff you didn't think you could debate over, but we do. Like, what way to have the toilet roll, the infamous one. And things like that, but there's a time and a place.
Yeah,
and even if
it doesn't have to get nasty even then. If
there's
it's like
there's never any justification for nastiness or intent to say something to someone.
Like, this person sort of making very generalistic statements about me and my life, and I just thought this shouldn't be part of the stuff you're debating, and the way you're debating it's horrible to begin with, and you know that. I made you aware of that.
There is a correct way to debate as well. I think it's a skill that isn't taught.
This is the thing, like, I always feel a lot more empathy for autistic people when it's a neurotypical. I just cut off, sigh, and go, that was a bad experience. But when it's an autistic person,
it feels like they should know these things because it's their world.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas with an autistic person, I start overthinking and thinking, oh, but maybe no one ever taught them, or but maybe this happened, or maybe someone's told them to do that. I start making excuses for them, and then I'm like, no, you've told them, you've given them a chance, it's not okay. If they've not been taught, that might be the reason, but it's not an excuse.
Yeah, that's the thing I can see sometimes when maybe people haven't had, like, I must admit, social skills is one of the things that I've never had formal support with.
No, me neither.
My mother and non-verbal psychology textbooks and books and things like that, we've gone through things and my mum sort of, like, explained why she does things she does. So it's been very sort of informal, but it's been there. No matter maybe someone who's maybe said something who's also autistic, and think, well, maybe they've not had that, because I've been very fortunate to have a fantastic support network at home and have that stuff. But then it's like, it's still, as you say, once you meet someone, it still doesn't justify. It's
also that thing of, we very much advocate for let autistic people use their own socialisation methods. Yeah. And if somebody's doing that in a really horrible way, like, they're not actually using what we would call autistic socialisation methods, they're just plain straight up being mean to people, then it gives the wrong impression about what the community mean by that. So there's so much to think about. It's just really difficult.
Is. It's a mind. Socialisation is a minefield, basically. But I think it does definitely sort of come down to that. When you say about autistic socialisation, it's basically if someone socialises in the way that you wouldn't.
Yeah.
As if you're neurotypical encountering someone who's autistic and they do something that you wouldn't do or say, if it's not nasty, what's the issue?
Exactly.
I think that's where the eye contact thing comes into something as well.
Isn't it? Like,
yeah,
neurotypical interaction is difficult for us, but we're also completely used to it. So we're used to having to adapt. We don't kick up a fuss. But when a neurotypical encounters our different way that they're not used to, that they're struggling with, it's like, oh no, we've decided you're the problem, you're the difference, you're not doing that. It's just like, oh.
And then I think that's what's nice to, like, sort of going back to, like, Catherine and seeing stuff like that. It's seeing that, well, actually, there's problems in that interaction. Yeah. And it's that meet in the middle, and it's that sort of making it so it isn't just us having to change. And it's like, with eye contact especially, I mean...
why do people care so much about eye contact?
I'll never understand it, because I think it's just like I've spent so much time around autistic people and I'm aware I don't. Like, I'll make it with people I like and I'm comfortable with, but I, on the whole, don't.
It's when it's competitive rudeness. I'm like, does it matter if they're listening to you, if they're engaging in a conversation with you? They want to.
I mean, I think, I can't remember who said it. I think I've mentioned it once, and I was like, well, maybe conversation is boring. Have you thought about that? And it's kind of like, I think I've had so many interactions where there's been no eye contact. I'm someone who communicates online. You can have a conversation over the phone. No eye contact in that. When you actually think about it, there's so many situations where there's no eye contact and people still...
Funny, actually, because I struggle more with the phone. Weird.
The phone's different. If I have to, like, ring... I can speak to people over the phone. That's fine.
Yeah.
If I've got to ring up, book an appointment, I can't.
I can cope up with the phone, like, once a month. I think that's my limit.
Yeah.
And I have to prepare, I have to be ready for it, I have to have space for it, and then I have to calm down afterwards.
Even for after there, ring my mum and be like, hello, how are you? I'm like, when I'm, got a lot of walking, I sort of can't find my headphones, I'm like, I'll say what my mum wants.
See, I just use text for anything like that.
My mother cannot text.
Yeah, then I can see how you've had to adapt.
Yeah, it's just easier to ring her.
But yeah, obviously I'm doing double empathy research at the minute, getting autistics and non-autistics to try and interact better, and that's basically the aim, is for it not to always be the autistic person trying to adapt, for them to meet halfway, but then the other half's made up by the non-autistic person adapting to how we are, which for me, autistic socialisation, from a subjective level, not a research level, is things like abruptness.
Yeah.
Not necessarily showing facial expressions, especially if you've got alexithymia.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, alexithymia, I think.
I always said alexithymia.
I don't know, it's probably one of those things people debate. But yeah, it's like abruptness. Basically having very rigid rules, because coming back to when I asked my mum about the Hope You're Well, she was saying how her and her brother, if they're talking, sometimes they'll treat it as a question, other times they just treat it as a fleeting statement.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, I can't cope with that. I need a rule. I need a very strict, specific rule to follow each time.
Yeah.
But you can't always have that, and that's where I meet people halfway, where I don't go, oh yeah, I need to know. I'm quite happy to try and go with the flow, but I also need people to meet me halfway and not start judging me if I seem strange in some way, or if it comes across intense. Just talk to me, just do that abrupt communication, tell me what you mean, what you think.
Make the consideration that other people can be different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the big thing, like, I'm so excited to be, like, helping you on the double empathy project and stuff. I'm so excited. But because I think it feels so natural, because we've spent all our lives really meeting neurotypicals, completely changing who we are and how we work, and to the point where it's exhausting and like distressing and can have quite negative like consequences. It feels so natural for like it to just not be one-sided all the time.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I think it's just that kind of thing, like you say, because we're seen as the problem. It's very much a sort of case of, well, how's that reaction going to be?
Yeah, it is difficult. And for me, the main difference, like if somebody was trying to meet me halfway, the main thing I'd want is say what you mean, stop using subtleties, stop expecting me to read your mind or how you feel, stop lying about how you feel if I ask how you feel. You know, just everything up front.
I had a thing where I had a friend, and like I'm super sort of open, and like we were doing something, and I think she wished we'd gone home before we had. And then, because I know her well enough to pick up on like expressions and stuff, she seemed really like down or like off. And then I was maybe quite intense about it, but it's because I was like, what's wrong? It's like 2 minutes ago, something was fine. And then she said something, and I just couldn't deal with the fact it was like a contradiction. And it sort of like really, it did frustrate me, because it felt like, oh, you're aware. And it just, that sort of confusion of why didn't you just say it?
See, for me, sometimes I do that thing of, I'm not fine, but I'm going to say I'm fine. But the reason I do that, it's just because it means I don't want to talk about it. Just accept that I'm fine. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get past it. Just take my word for it. I don't like it when people do it, but then they judge you if you don't figure it out or you don't keep pushing. I'm like, no, if I say I'm fine, it means I'm fine. Don't, even if I'm not quite okay, just
I think it's also like,
it too much.
I try not to say I'm fine, but sometimes I am just fine. And then people think I mean something else. It's like, no, I'm fine. Like, I'd tell you if I was about to like fall apart in a minute.
Because often for me, fine means, you know,
there's nothing
great.
Yeah, there's nothing great, but there's nothing bad. I'm also not
crumbling. I'm managing. I'm getting through things. So don't chip away at it too much.
I think especially for me, because I think in my house, I think with the history of depression, asking how I am is a genuine question sometimes of like, has it, especially when behaviours change and someone's like, are you all right? It's a sort of general prompt of things going downhill, and sometimes it is just fine. It's not like a fantastic day, but it's also not like things aren't spiraling. We don't need to implement things to like sort of manage it.
It also makes me sad when you ask someone how are you and they say they're okay, and then you later find out they've been going through a really bad time, and I don't feel mad at them. I just feel so sad because I'm like, these silly social constructs have made you feel like you can't just tell people when they ask.
And I think it's also, it's like, I sometimes, like, when I've had that in the past, and it's kind of like, well, did you feel you couldn't talk to me about it? Because I'm sort of like the counsellor friend. I think comes with being the psychology student friend. And I'm sort of so, like, open and sort of, like, come to me and things like that. Even if I've got, like, my own stuff going on, it's like, I've always got time for people I care about.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's definitely when someone has that, it's like, will you not? So even when I've had a bad day and, like, instead of saying I'm fine, like, my friends have asked, they've gone, like, oh, no, today's a rough day.
Yeah,
and they're kind of like, are you, and they're like, oh, can we do anything? I'm like, no, like, I'll work through it. Like, I've got enough strategies and coping in place. I'm just not gonna, it's just my outlook is, why would I say I'm fine when I'm not?
This is again where, like, I feel more comfortable with autistic people, because if you ask me how am I,
yeah,
there's no worry of if I give you the truth, are you going to react badly? You're just going to be so chill about it, like I've just said.
I think I can learn.
Casual.
I don't know if it's because I'm aware of, like, all the other stuff going on, like the mental health, being autistic, where I've got to be honest about things because it changes the dynamic of how things work around me as well.
I found it hard, like, especially recently. I don't know what your opinion would be on this. So, like, obviously, as much as I love my PhD and I do really love it, I love doing research, you do still get the stressful times. And the problem is that because Alex, comparatively, doesn't really like the work he does, he just does it for the sake of its job, I then don't feel like I can be like, right, I'm not okay today because work stressed me out, because then I'm always like, he's probably unhappier with work than I am in the long term. So then it gets to the point of I have a meltdown and then we have to evaluate what's happened, and then it's like, yeah, there was that work stress I didn't tell you about, and he's like, no, just talk to me. But people say we don't have empathy. Empathy is there.
We're naming this Socialisation with lots of empathy conversations too.
Because honestly, I'm like, as much as, I want to be upfront, I'm also like, I don't want to make his life harder, and I'm the same with everyone. If I thought you were having a bad time, I wouldn't dump on you and be like,
see,
no, I'm not okay right
now. I've sort of learned to kind of do this, like, I sort of sometimes, if I'm having, like, a really great time, especially with uni that my college friends aren't having, they don't enjoy uni the way I enjoy uni. Yeah. Like, I've sort of thrown myself at full force at everything in uni and just kind of, like, adore being in an academic environment. Like, this has been my place and happy place. I find it hard to sometimes share some of the, like, really good news because I don't want to make someone else feel, like, worse. And I think then it's kind of like, I feel like I'm not sharing stuff, and I'm like, is that a friendship barrier? Is that socialisation barrier?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm not saying, but then it's like...
But then with me, like, when you're speaking to me, there's been times where I've been going through something bad, I've not been coping, and then you've told me, like, you're having a really great day, and it makes me feel better, because I like you, you're my friend, and then I'm like, Sophie's okay, that's a good thing, something's going well.
The thing is, even though I know, like, I'm trying to not do it the same way, it's kind of like, I'm even when, like, stuff's, like, when everything's, like, spiraling down the drain for me, I'll still make time if someone else is having... There's times when I haven't got that coping to sort of deal with another, like, someone else's. It can be exhausting. But I'll always sort of give as much as you can. I give as much as I can. And so I try and sort of remember that the same way if I was having a bad time and you say something great, it's kind of like, yay, it's like shared excitement. And I always try and be mindful that I do that for other people. So it's kind of like...
it's a bit difficult though, isn't it? Because, like, I have no neurotypicals where... if you were to be like, I'm going through a great time, and they weren't, then they would be like, oh, why are you doing that? Or say behind your back. Like, not everyone's the same. It's hard.
The last point I was just about to make is that I think because neurotypicals, they don't always say what they mean.
No, they don't.
I feel like they can sometimes struggle. Well, not everyone, obviously, we don't generalise here. But it's kind of like, because I only communicate via honesty. I don't actually know another way to communicate.
No, I don't.
And because other people, they'll question you. Yeah. Because they're not always honest and truthful about everything themselves. And I think it comes to that, if I say I'm fine, someone will question it. And it's like, well, just because when you say you're fine, you mean like 60 different things. Doesn't mean everyone else does. Then I realise, oh no, it's just because I communicate via brutal, pure honesty.
I think as well, like, it's a bit off topic, but there's a problem of, like, the social media age where people don't look and go, oh, so-and-so's happy, that's great. They look and go, my life's not as good as theirs, and they forget the context of those people have struggles too. I won't lie, I won't pretend my life's better than it is on social media, and I will, if it's something that's important to me, that's been difficult, I'll be really open and honest about that. Like, my heart condition was always very transparent, But at the same time, like, I'm quite inclined to go on social media every time I'm happy, but I wouldn't like it if I had to do that every time I was sad as well, because it's not that you're trying to paint a version of yourself to make other people feel rubbish or, you know, to come across better than you are. It's just, it's the same with, like, imagine having a photo album where for every happy picture, all your bad times and bad days are in there. It wouldn't be nice, would it?
There's a few sets of pictures where, like, there's one where I look grumpy and then one where I look less grumpy when I'm especially when I'm little. It's quite funny now that you said that. It's like pairs of things. But I think it is, like, I love looking back at my social media.
Yeah. It is like a photo album, isn't it?
Especially like for me, for like my Instagram, I don't post a lot mainly because I've like forgotten my password and can't bother resetting it at the moment. I'm not that attached to Instagram. But for me, that's the sort of way to back up pictures of like stuff that really means a lot. So I wouldn't like post a picture. It's not I thought it was awful. Like my Instagram's mostly pictures of Scotland.
Like especially when I do that thing at the end of the year of like reflecting on stuff, I always include negatives or things that have been difficult, but I don't like, if I'm having a bad day or if I had an argument or something's upset me, I don't get my phone out and be like, right, putting this on social media, because I'd hate it afterwards. I'd be like, oh no, I don't want that out there. I don't want to remember that. I don't want people to know that. And it's that important thing of, don't think just because people are posting stuff they're happy about that they want you to be miserable. And it's creating that context of people being like, no, I'm struggling right now. I don't want to see you be happy. But I think we need to get back to that thing as society of, let's be happy for other people. So next week we will be talking about overload, meltdown and burnout.
Yes, the trifecta of trouble.
Yes. So thank you for listening and we will be back next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.